In a car market that is increasingly volatile, there seems to be one player that has proven time and time again that they have their act together. And I know there's going to be a lot of you watching this video that don't like this answer, but the facts just simply don't lie. General Motors has been a strong player year after year, quarter after quarter, despite the fact that the car market is changing rapidly. Yesterday, GM reported their Q4 of 2023 data, giving us not only a glimpse into Q4, but also the final 2023 picture as a whole, and General Motors is on a streak of beating analyst expectations, and Q4 was no exception. But I got to admit that even though GM's earnings were quite good, and they did in fact beat expectations, we can't ignore the fact that there were still obvious signs within this GM earnings release that shows that the car market is in fact changing. And many of these changes are absolutely going to benefit the customer who's looking to buy a car this year. And there are a few things that I want to talk about, and I want to kick this off by actually going over the numbers that were presented during this earnings call. But before we dive into that, I do want to let you guys know that today is actually the final sale of my course, the Car Sharing Masterclass, and we're not going to be running another sale like this until November of 2024, so in about 11 months. You can use the code NEWYEAR2024 to get $150 off your purchase, and you can check out the link to the course down in the description below. In the Car Sharing Masterclass, I teach you everything that you need to know about starting and scaling a car sharing fleet with the exact same business model that I've used to grow my fleet to nearly 30 cars. In the course, I teach you how to buy below market value cars, how to determine which cars are the right ones to buy, how to navigate things like guest communications, invoices, reimbursements, how to systemize and automate your process. That way your business model is truly as semi-passive as possible. And of course, things like insurance, damage claims, what happens when your car is damaged on a rental, and everything in between. Now, the best part is that whenever you sign up for the Car Sharing Masterclass, not only do you gain access to 7 hours of course content, but you'll also be invited to our private Discord and our private monthly Zoom calls. In fact, January's monthly Zoom call is being held today, January 31st, so if you want to attend that, then be sure to claim your course today. Now, I am so incredibly confident with the quality of education that you'll receive with the Car Sharing Masterclass that we offer a 30-day, robust, no questions asked money-back guarantee. That way you can try it out at no risk to you. Again, if you're interested in checking this out, you can use the code NEWYEAR2024 to get $150 off your purchase. The link is down in the description below. Now, GM's adjusted earnings per share was $1.24, and revenue came in at $42.98 billion. Now, while GM did beat analyst expectations, they actually did still underperform in 2023 compared to 2022. And while revenue was up for the year by 10%, it was actually down by 0.3% in Q4 of 2023 compared to Q4 of 2022. And for the quarter, pre-tax profit was down a whopping 54%, and it was down for the year by 14.6%. Now, these figures are absolutely substantial, down 54% in profit for the quarter and 14.6% for the year. It definitely isn't a good light for whenever we're talking about GM in the context of Q4 moving forward, because it is absolutely true that the car market is slowing down, and this is having an impact on GM's overall profit, which is why we saw such a substantial decrease in Q4. Now, in addition to just decreasing demand, the lower profit can also be attributed to things like higher cost, less financing from customers because of high interest rates, and of course, we also can't forget about the strike, which is estimated to have cost GM about $1 to $1.1 billion. But truthfully, this is where GM does an excellent job of setting expectations throughout the year. Because if we look at GM guidance for the year, which is adjusted throughout the year, and we compare that to how GM actually performed, they hit the nail on the head every time, with net income guidance being anywhere between $9.1 billion and $9.7 billion, with the actual results being $10.1 billion, and 2024 guidance being between $9.8 billion and $11.2 billion. 2023 adjusted income guidance was between $11.7 billion and $12.7 billion, and their actual 2023 results was $12.4 billion, while 2024 guidance is expected to be between $12 and $14 billion. And we continue to go down into the guidance list, and we compare what 2023 guidance was versus what 2023 results were, and they were right on par with expectations every single time. And based off of the newly released 2024 guidance, they are expecting to see pretty good growth in 2024. Of course, this probably will end up being adjusted as the year plays out. And in the case of GM, despite the fact that there is a waning car market, despite increased financing costs and increase in operational expenses, GM has overperformed analyst expectations for the last 5 or more quarters because GM and their CEO, Mary Barra, is exceptional at curbing and setting expectations, which I think is something that is interesting to note. Now, next I want to talk about EVs, because there has been a real noticeable shift in the last couple of months whenever it comes to how automakers are viewing EVs. Around this time last year, year and probably even towards the second half of 2022, there was a lot of eagerness surrounding EVs. Everybody's really optimistic about the role that electric vehicles would play in the future of the automotive market, with almost every single mainstream automaker out there, with really the exception of Toyota, saying that they had definitive plans to switch to an entire EV lineup within about 20 to 30 years, and other plans of rolling out a variety of different EVs in the more near-term future. But in the last couple of months, there has been a very noticeable shift in the way that automakers are talking about electric vehicles. And automakers are definitely beginning to take a step back and really question about what the future of EVs really look like, because I don't think that it is what they initially thought it would be. Now, as we know, EVs are struggling and there's really no way around it. Tesla missed earnings expectations, Ford's EV lineup is just bleeding money, and again, brands like Toyota aren't even entirely sold on the future of EVs at all. But all things considered, GM is actually doing quite well in this space, at least whenever it comes to traditional auto manufacturers transitioning to EV production. Despite EV struggles, GM is expecting for EV deliveries to rise by 10% next year, which would result in record sales for the company for EVs. And in the letter to the shareholders, it was stated, and I quote, "In our EV business, we expect our U.S. portfolio will become variable profit positive in the second half of the year based on our current expectations for EV demand and production growth, strong interest in our vehicles, lower commodity prices, and other factors." This was stated by GM CEO Mary Barra, talking about the profitability of EVs and when they're going to become profitable. And this is impressive, though some people are skeptical of these claims. If GM can in fact perform on this and they actually do become variable profit positive next year, that will be a huge step in the right direction of where GM and other automakers are looking to go. And it's something that almost all automakers, with the exception of Tesla, are really struggling with today. But in a different part of this exact same earnings release, there seemed to be a lot of uncertainty around EVs as well. And while GM does expect for EVs to rise in 2024, I think that they're definitely having doubts on whether or not EVs are actually going to have such a stronghold in the future as they maybe initially thought that they would. Because from the earnings call, we also learned that GM will reintroduce plug-in hybrids to select vehicles in 2024, citing that this is what customers are wanting and it's what dealers have been requesting. This is an incredibly interesting move, and it's actually something that I've been talking on this channel for quite a while about, though I'm certainly not the one who made up the discussion surrounding this. Really, Toyota was sort of the first auto manufacturer to come out and say, you know, maybe EVs aren't actually the future and maybe plug-in hybrids are instead. And back in 2022, Toyota actually got a lot of flack for this mindset, but now it looks as though other automakers are beginning to adopt that same ideology because of the fact that there is such a slowing demand in the EV space. When it comes to price, practicality, reliability, plug-in hybrids are probably the way to go. It looks as though GM is definitely at least exploring this option. And last but not least, it looks as though based off of this earnings call that GM is looking to lower prices in 2024, which is great news. It was stated by CFO Paul Jacobson that GM is preparing for a 2% to 2.5% average sales price drop on vehicles this year compared to last year. Now, obviously, I wouldn't hold my breath for price cuts, but the fact that GM is coming out and publicly saying that there are going to be price cuts, which in my memory is the first time that they've said this in recent years, I think that that is a great sign that this could actually end up happening, which could have a great trickle-down effect to the overall car market as a whole. Now, when it comes to the earnings call for GM, I don't necessarily think that GM is the absolute best reflection of the car market as a whole, especially the used car market. And there's a few reasons why I feel this way. First is the fact that GM is just such a large company. And the second reason is because GM really isn't in the business of selling cars, they're really in the business of manufacturing cars. And so whenever we're looking at vehicle demand, especially in the used car market, looking at GM doesn't really give us an accurate glimpse of what the car market is doing. Instead, looking at resources like Cox Automotive, Manheim, earnings reports for AutoNation or CarMax, these are much better reflections on how the used car market is doing rather than how vehicle manufacturers are doing. And so while I do think that it is hard to gauge demand from a GM earnings report, I do think that it paints the very clear picture that the auto market is changing, which is why there are talks of pivoting strategy, price cuts, and decreasing profit. The one thing that I did disagree on with GM CEO Mary Barra in this earnings call was the overall strength of the car market as a whole and the U.S. economy. Mary Barra stated during this call that she believes that not only the car market but the economy are really strong and they'll continue to be strong throughout the year. And I personally don't buy this, and truthfully, I don't know that Mary Barra does either. But that's a topic for another video. In fact, I'm going to be doing a deep dive on the topic in the next couple of weeks, so make sure to stay tuned. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.